You are so lazy. You are so ugly. You're such a mess. You always make messes. You're so inconsistent. You're so disloyal. You're not functioning. You're so dumb. You're so this, that, and the other. I've heard a lot of things like that in my life, and I'm sure some of you have also. Are they all true? Should we listen to them? Should we care if somebody says that to us, as I just did? In this week's Torah portion, we have a situation that sheds light on
I'm always wondering what you're going to say.
Experiences as these. It talks about how Noach, after the flood, he planted a vineyard. It was actually last week's Torah portion, Noach. This week's already Lech Lecha, but I'm a day late. This is Sunday, the day after. So it talks about how he planted a vineyard and he got drunk, and there was an incident where he was uncovered. And his 3 sons were out there. One of the sons saw, it says, Cham. There's Shem, Cham, and Yefes. They're the 3 sons. Cham was the son who the Torah describes. He saw his father's nakedness, and he saw it, and he went out, and he ran and told his brothers. Shem and Yefes, the 2, the older and the younger. Actually, Yefes is the older and Shem was the younger. It says that they took a cover, a blanket, and they went backwards. They held it, a blanket, simultaneously with behind their shoulders from behind, and walked backwards. And their faces were facing the opposite direction. And they went and they covered their father. They covered his nakedness. And then the Torah says, and the nakedness of their father they did not see. So the biblical commentators talk about this. Say, why? The Torah's words are so precise. Why? If the Torah described clearly that they went backwards with a blanket, with a cover behind them, it's obvious. It says that they were looking forward the whole time. It's obvious that they didn't see this nakedness. So why repeat it? It seems extra. It says, many commentators talk about this. The lesson that we're going to learn over here is that we have a choice whether or not, or how to react when we see somebody else's, we'll call it nakedness over here, or something negative about another person. In the Talmud, from 2,000 years ago, there's a quote. It said, Kol haposel bimbumol posa. Whoever cancels, literally, another human being because of a certain characteristic or character trait, they are actually canceling or talking about, commenting on their own blemish, their own personal issue. So that's a Talmud. If I say something negative about another person, I'm really talking about myself, my own blemish. Now, there's many discussions about this in many walks of life, Jewish and not. The Baal Shem Tov from 300 some years ago, the founder of the Hasidic movement, expounded and explained many times in many different ways. And this is the gist of it, the way I understand it, the way I learned it. He says it's not necessarily black and white, that if you see a blemish, a negative trait in somebody else, automatically it's yours. But what happens is that everything in this world is divine providence. God Almighty orchestrates for things to happen, and He wanted you to see whatever it was you were shown. Now the question is, what is your response? Based on your response, you'll know why you were shown, or you observed, or you became aware of this negative seemingly negative or really negative act or behavior or character trait or characteristic in another person. Why? Says the Baal Shem Tov, depending on your response. If you feel disturbed and disgusted and it bothers you that this person did something wrong or this person acts in a certain way, and your internal kishkas, your guts are churning, says the Baal Shem Tov, this means that God showed it to you because you have that same problem inside. And it doesn't mean that you've done exactly the same things that this person has done or that you feel or think the same exact way. It means that on some level, could be on a very refined level, you have the same issue. And that's why God showed it to you. And that's why it bothers you. It bothers you because the Baal Shem Tov says you're looking into a mirror. Because when you look at another human being, it's always a mirror. What you see in another is really what's inside of you. Now, what happens if you don't have that particular negative quality, says the Baal Shem Tov, then you won't be disgusted or disturbed. You will be filled with compassion and you will want to help that person. So your approach, your response, your reaction will be very different. It'll be one of calm, maybe pity or empathy. It will be one of concern, of saying, yes, I was shown this by God from above in order to help this person. Let me go help him or her in ways that I can. So here's one quick lesson, and we see that in the words of the Torah, where the Torah says, after clearly describing that they did everything they needed to do to not see their father in this negative light, the Torah again says, and the nakedness of the father they did not see. They add those words again to demonstrate that they didn't see a negative. They just saw a condition that needs to be repaired, a situation that needs to be fixed, and they went ahead and fixed it. No emotions, no negativity. That's one lesson. And there's a lot more about this, obviously, that we can. It's a lifelong quest to be in that position and to really realize that every time we see something that God is showing it to us in order to teach us a lesson about ourselves versus to actually help another person. To know when it is a lesson for us and when is it for somebody else. Anyway, my Gimble's playing tricks on me here, but I'm going to move on. Here's another thought now. It's technically unrelated, but obviously people can find connections because the whole Torah is related. And this week's Torah portion talks about after the flood, the people of the world moved to this place, said Eretz Shinar, and they decided to build this great building, build the great tower. But anyway, it talks about how they built their building materials. And it says, and they said, Hava, come, Nil bina levenim, let us make bricks. And v'nisrifa l'sefa, we're going to fire them, we'll mold them and fire them. And then it says, v'tehilahem halavena le'even. And the bricks for them became like stone. So the Torah describes how the people, they actually lived in a place which we call Bavel. Bavel is Babylon. And Rashi, the commentator, talks about this and says, what do we need to know? What materials they used for making their buildings. And Rashi says that Bavel, the Babylon, maybe it was Iraq at the time, or that area, is a mishor. It's a plain. It's a wide stretch of flat land. And there are no stones there. So all their buildings are made out of bricks. So that's what Rashi says. So the Rebbe, of course, talks about this, and he quotes the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, who describes the difference between stone and bricks and the relevance to our day-to-day life. And he says that stone is a God-made natural phenomenon. It's heart of the rock, and it's all natural.
Yes.
Bricks are man-made, and it takes a lot of effort to make bricks. But once they're made, says the Alter Rebbe, some bricks are even stronger and more beneficial than stone. And the Rebbe goes further and explains that the difference between stone and bricks is also similar to the difference between Israel and the rest of the world. Israel is a holy country. It's a God-made country. Of course, the whole world is God-made. Everything is God, but for this context, Israel is a holy place. It's essentially a supernatural place, and it has supernatural qualities. And though it is supernatural, God still wanted Israel to share the natural qualities that the rest of the world has. So people still need to plow, to dig, to plow, to plant, and to harvest. And agriculturally, it is agriculturally. Oh man, I'm losing it. So in the world of agriculture, the land is the same as the rest of the world. So, but really, essentially, it's a supernatural place. Says the Rebbe, Israel and rock, stone, are symbolic of the perfection, of a perfect time, a perfect person, a perfect place, like the times of Mashiach. In contrast, Bavel, or Babylon, or bricks that were used in Babylon, they are representative of the rest of us in our world and our life in exile, as we're not in Israel before Mashiach comes. And the Rebbe says, what is the lesson for us? The Rebbe says that bricks take effort to make, but once they're made, they become like stone, and sometimes even better than stone. The Rebbe says in our life mission, personally and also in our education with our children, he says that we are meant to toil. We are not meant to have it easy, like stones that come from heaven. We're meant to work really hard. The Rebbe says, Yagata umatzata. If you toil hard and you put in a lot of effort, you will find, you will win, you will succeed. And you will succeed beyond the effort that you put in. And this is what the Rebbe is telling us about the bricks. It says the bricks, they're made out of the most common building element on earth, clay or mud. And they have the perfect composition of the plasticity that they need, and the perfect balance of air and water to dry, and to mold it into a mold, and then to dry it, and then with the perfect temperature, with the heat of the fire, the right fire, they fuse, all the molecules fuse, and it becomes a different entity. It becomes stone, and it becomes sometimes even better than stone. It says the Rebbe, the same thing is with our efforts in our connection with God, in our service to mankind, and in our education with our children. Because we can't just assume that we're already stone, that we're already Israel, that we're already perfect. He says no, we need to work hard, toil, and you shall succeed. Rebbe gave one cute example about children. He says with a child, he says if you let a child go, oftentimes a child will just want to eat candies and survive on nosh and not have necessarily be driven towards healthy foods. But if we let a child do that, said the Rebbe, then we're hurting them, their teeth, their health, and everything in between. So too, he said, so we need to mold a child like you mold the clay, the earth, and you need to then mix the mixture together and then warm it up in the warm fire of Torah. It says that Torah is compared to fire. Its flames are hot and fire. Many times, the Torah is compared to fire, and the warmth of our connection with God is compared to fire. Says the Rebbe, when you do that for yourself and for your children, and you warm yourself, and you burn yourself in the furnace of Torah, when you're molded in the right mold, then you become stone, or better than stone, and then you'll be able to build an everlasting edifice for God, an everlasting building for God. And the Rebbe said that this love that we have for God, every Jew has an internal love, and every person has a love for God that is internal, that is in their DNA, and it is an inheritance that we have from our ancestors, from Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. And the Rebbe says that if we let that love be revealed and mold ourselves and burn it, which means in the kiln we solidify our love to God, then all the waters, the raging waters of the flood, which are called Mayim Rabim, these great waters that are all the distractions and the obstacles and the difficulties that we have in this world, preventing us or trying to prevent us from being the best Jews we can be. Lo yuchul chabot et ahava. They will not be able to extinguish this love that we have for God, and in turn that God has for us. So this is the story for today. We learned two lessons. One about a mirror. The Baal Shem Tov said that everything we see is like a mirror. Every person we see is like a mirror. If we are disgusted by their actions, it's a reflection on ourselves, and we need to fix ourselves and leave the other guy alone. If we are moved to compassion, it is, we call hashgacha pratit, it is divine providence that God showed us this situation and wants us to help. Then this next talk is about bricks versus stones. Bricks take effort, but they produce sometimes a better result than the natural one. That's the story for today. God bless you all. Have a great day. Finish.